Hi guys, it's Mary Beth with Crochet Girl, and today I'm going to do another quick yarn review, and this time it's more of a battle of the yarn situation. I would quickly like to say thank you to all the new subscribers to this channel. I was surprised by the amount of views I got on my last video, and it was insane. I was not prepared, and so I definitely am excited to get this channel rolling and give you guys more content that you want. So if you have like any video suggestions or any ideas, or if there's something in particular you'd like to see, any kind of particular yarn, let me know and I'll be more than happy to do a review, or more than happy to review a certain pattern for easiness or difficulty level, or even just like walk you through a stitch. So the two yarns I'm reviewing are from Knit Picks. And if you're not familiar with Knit Picks is an online yarn store that specializes in high quality, low cost yarn. They directly manufacture all their yarn, and so it cuts out the middleman in the transportation system, and that's how they can have their yarns at such a low cost whenever their yarns are higher quality. And the reason why I decided to review these two yarns from Knit Picks is that Knit Picks is an online store, and so therefore it is kind of difficult to determine what kind of quality you're going to get. And so I just wanted to give you guys a sort of inside look at what kind of yarns you're looking at whenever you go with Knit Picks. So the two yarns that I'm comparing in this review are the Mighty Stitch Bulky from Knit Picks and then the Brava Bulky from Knit Picks. And I chose these two different bulky yarn weights because one, Christmas is coming around pretty soon now, and if you haven't already, it's time to get started making those holiday projects, because that's really what's going to start driving and kicking in, and you do not want to fall behind and be knitting or crocheting about 20 different projects on Christmas Eve like someone, me. So without further ado, I'm just going to hop right on in. So like I said before, both of these are bulky weight. They have 135 yards in each skein. And I decided to get both of these yarns in the color silver. This is also because Knit Picks has yarn colors in different yarn lines. So for instance, I got both of these in silver, like I said. And I'm just going to hold these up for you. This is the Mighty Stitch, and then this is the Brava. I did have the label for the Brava, but I suspect some culprits ripped it off. So as you can see from these two colors, the Brava definitely has a darker, more slate gray with green undertones to it. And also keep in mind that these yarns are also composed on different fibers, but I'll get into that in a minute. And then the Mighty Stitch is more of a light silver color. The way that I like to compare these is like this is like a shark color and this is more of like a dolphin color, if that makes sense. I'm a Floridian, so that's how I compare things. But anyway, like I said, these two are two different blends. The Brava here is a 100% acrylic blend, whereas the Mighty Stitch is 20% superwash wool and 80% acrylic. So I'm going to focus in on reviewing the Mighty Stitch yarn first. So this is actually a recent new yarn from Knit Picks. They released the bulky Mighty Stitch about a month or so ago. They were already carrying the Mighty Stitch worsted weight, but then they expanded the Mighty Stitch line to include this bulky weight. As you can also tell, this also has more of a shine to it than the Brava. I'm going to hold it up to compare one more time, if you can see. The light coming in through my window is a little bit intense. I apologize for that. But in person, you can tell that the Mighty Stitch has more of a sheen to it than the Brava does. So, and also, the Mighty Stitch is super soft. Incredibly soft. Like, much softer than the Brava. And I really appreciate that. Now you can see that's being good for baby blankets or even a baby coat. And since it is a super wash wool blend, it would be easy to just chuck in the washing machine and not have to worry about the shrinkage or felting or any of that stuff that comes with dealing with wool blends. So another thing about this yarn is that the fraying is ridiculous at the ends, which is kind of common in blended yarns. Like I said, this is 80% acrylic and 20% wool, so sometimes the fibers don't quite bind together as well as they should whenever you have a yarn blend, which is fine, like that's what should be expected. But let me just hold up the swatch I have for you. So this is the swatch for the Mighty Stitch, and this is the tail of my yarn. I'm going to hold that a little bit closer so that you can see the amount of fraying that's going on here. It is a little bit ridiculous, and this isn't like a short tail, like this is a long tail. This is how much fraying I had going on. Hold it back. This is how much fraying I had going on before I started my project. So that's kind of a downside for me. But like I said, it is super soft. And let me just hold this swatch up a little bit closer so you can see. This is a 5x5 swatch. What I did was I chained 15 for both of the swatches in this. So as you can tell from the swatch, this yarn has really nice stitch definition. I do all of my swatches in half double crochet just because I think the half double crochet is the best stitch for scarves and hats, and I feel like that those are the most commonly crocheted goods that are made. If in the future you would like to see single crochet or double crochet swatches, let me know and I will switch that up. But for right now, I'm keeping it at half double crochet. And so like I said, this is a 5x5 swatch. Really nice stitch definition. It still keeps that shine whenever it's crocheted up. It's also really easy to work with. Despite the fraying that you see in the beginning, I did not have any issues with my hook slipping into the yarn fibers. I didn't have any issues with the yarn splitting while I was crocheting it, which is really nice. That's definitely a pet peeve of mine whenever the yarn starts to split, because then you mess up the crochet and you have to go back and frog it, and sometimes it gets knotted whenever you crochet to split it. It's a whole ordeal. So that's definitely one of my pet peeves, is whenever yarns split. And this yarn does not split. Didn't split on me once. Now before I get into my review of Brava, I just wanted to hold these two swatches up side by side so that I can say one last thing about the Mighty Stitch. So this is the Brava swatch, and this is actually a 5x5 swatch, but I still chained 15 with a 6.5 millimeter hook. I also chained 15 with a 6.5 millimeter hook for this one as well. So as you can tell, the Mighty Stitch is not as thick as the Brava, which I think is interesting to know within the consistency of Knit Picks yarns. You would expect a brand that kind of prides itself on being higher quality yarn would have equal yarn thickness, but I understand it is difficult to keep that consistent whenever you have mass manufacturing, and also whenever you have like a blend versus a 100% fiber yarn. So that's definitely something to note if you are looking for a project that is a true bulky project. I would definitely consider the Brava, but if you have a project that kind of leans between heavy worsted and bulky, then the Mighty Stitch is also a good option. I would probably categorize the Mighty Stitch as more of a heavy worsted instead of a bulky, but that's just my personal opinion based on this swatch. And so like I said, I'm going to jump into the Brava now. Just wanted to show you that swatch real fast. And so the Brava is 100% acrylic, like I mentioned before. And this yarn retails for $1.99, which is a bargain. This yarn is $2 for 136 yards, as compared to other yarns that you can find in the craft store. Is actually really competitive to Vanna's Choice or any type of flying brand yarns that you would find at your Michael's or Joann's, which is really great for Knit Picks. They try to be competitive, which I appreciate, because while I do like to support like indie brands and local businesses, it is kind of difficult to do that whenever they have higher priced yarns. So I really appreciate that fact about the Brava. So this is 100% acrylic, and this is definitely tougher than the Mighty Stitch. Definitely not as soft. It is a soft acrylic. Don't get me wrong. This acrylic is way softer than your typical yarn that you would find in your mass brand craft store. Definitely softer than Red Heart. Definitely softer than Caron, Simply Soft. But it still does have that rougher quality to it. Like, I can see this working really well for kids' hats and, like, kids' clothes, like jackets or rompers or jumpers or something along those lines. This is definitely a material that you would want to make kids' clothes out of because it's easier to wash, it's easier to care for. Even though the Mighty Stitch is a 20% superwash wool, you still have to keep in mind, like, you have to hang to dry it. It still needs extra care that 100% acrylic yarn doesn't need. I also didn't have any major splitting with this yarn. This yarn also has a little bit of fraying, but nothing compared to the Mighty Stitch. And again, that has to do with the blend quality. But definitely a good sturdy yarn. Like I said, perfect for kids' clothes. Perfect for making something for someone who you know will not take care of it. It's softer than most acrylics, but definitely not as soft as the Mighty Stitch. So I just want to hold up these swatches for you one last time so you can get a side-by-side comparison. Both of these swatches are 15 stitches wide and chained with a 6.5 millimeter hook. And you can tell that the Brava is a little bit larger than the Mighty Stitch, which is important to know whenever you're picking out a yarn for a project. And the prices for both of these yarns, this is $1.99 and then this is $3.49. So that's also important to keep in mind. You're getting the same amount of yarn, 136 yards, but this one is not quite as bulky, which is important. But if you have a project that calls for a bulky yarn, all you have to do is play with your hook size and check your gauge and make sure you have the right gauge before continuing on with the project, and it should be fine because the difference isn't that drastic, but it is still important to know. And so this is definitely the higher quality yarn, hence the higher price point. And then this is definitely like your bargain yarn. But it's still a high quality yarn. It's for the bargain. And it's definitely important to keep in mind. And you can see the color difference between the two silver swatches. And then that is that. Thank you for watching my Battle of the Yarns video. So just leave your suggestions in the comments below, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you for watching and have a great day.